hanging out with a little bit of a scratchy throat, so just keep that in mind. I think last week I was like, how many times am I going to clear my throat? And like, luckily, whatever's happening seems to just be hanging out here in this realm and not doing anything else, which I am super grateful for, because I'm like looking at all of these like snot-nosed kids, including my own, and I'm like, please God, keep your germs to yourself. 'Tis the season and it is sick. Anywho, so like I said, bear with me. I have coffee and water, and I am not going to constantly clear my throat. That's my promise to you. I'm going to try. Anyways, I was thinking about this conversation that I had with this woman last week. I was out and about, and we got on the topic of it was cold that night, and she made a comment like, I wish that I cooked more. I enjoy cooking. It's just that, like, this is so spot on for so many people. Like, we go to the store. She was telling me that she, like, went to Natural Grocers, buys like a bunch of produce, and then it just like chills in her fridge and on her counter, and she feels uninspired and blah. And she was asking me, like, well, where did you learn how to, like, did your mom teach you? And I was like, no. No, that girl did not teach me how to cook. In fact, I mean, like, the opposite. I think that there were things that she made, and I mean, it's been so long since I've had anything that she made, but there were things that she made that I think that we do with our parents in general. Like, it doesn't even matter if it like tastes like a trash bag, but like they made it, and so it lends comfort in that way. You know what I'm saying? And so I'll never forget her. She never made like marinara or like pasta sauce from scratch, right? Like, she always bought, and I'm not knocking that, for the record, so don't come for me. I use jarred sauce, so sit down. And she would do what she called doctoring it up, right? Which meant like just dumping in like a shitload of like granulated garlic and like copious amounts of like Italian seasoning and black pepper. And then sometimes she would put like chopped up vegetables in it. And I will never forget, like, I was haunted by green bell peppers for such a large portion of my life because of my mother, because she loved them, and she found really, really obscure ways of like fitting them into dishes where they had like no fucking business being. And one of those places, which whatever, I get that like other people do this, but was in like pasta sauce. And I mean, I was not a picky eater as a kid. I was an adventurous eater, but there were like a handful of things that I was like, it's a hard no for me. And bell peppers were one of them. And I will never forget just, whoops, it's happening again. If you caught last week, I was like, I should not be talking about barfing on a podcast that's about food, but use your imagination. There were bell peppers, and then there was a mess. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I just like continued to tell you that I don't like bell peppers, and why? Like, why? Stop, right? And so that was definitely, like, I was not an athletic child at all. I was in some, like, real fucking random sports as a kid. And when I say I was in sports, I mean, like, a session. I wouldn't even call it a season, right? Like, I thought I was signing up for boxing, and I actually signed myself up for wrestling, and the dues had already been paid. So my mom was like, well, sucks to suck. I mean, I guess you're wrestling. And I'll just never forget, like, and I mean, this is like with other like classmates, men. I think I was one of 2 girls that wrestled. And I mean, when I tell you, I didn't wrestle. Like, I was so fucking mad to have to like go through this thing that I did not want to go through, but I had to because the dues were already paid. So I basically forfeited. I mean, it's probably embarrassing for everybody, including my mother, and like including the people that I was supposed to be wrestling against, because I literally would just get in stands and then just like let them pin me, and they'd be like, are we done? Yep, I'm good. Like that. I'm all good. And then there was a time that I was in synchronized swimming. Shut your mouth to me. Yes, that's a thing. I was in ice skating for a beat. So anyways, like, okay, I wasn't athletic. So like my outlet and the shit that I found really interesting was cooking, right? And like I inherently knew, even though like I majored, like what I knew most of the time was my mother's cooking, I knew that it wasn't anything great, right? Like I give her kudos as a 17-year-old mother. You know, like there were vegetables. I mean, she did her damnedest, okay? But there were like hella fish sticks and like boxed macaroni and cheese, but there was always like green beans, you know what I mean? And so I will never forget. That's what I did as a kid. Like kids were watching Saturday morning cartoons or whatever. And like, sure, there was some of that, but like I wanted to watch Food Network, you know? And like we had like a handful of cookbooks. What is it? Is it Creme de Colorado? Do y'all know what I'm talking about? It had like the aspen leaves on the front. Is that what it was called? Staple cookbook, right? And I mean, like half that shit, like we couldn't afford those ingredients. I didn't know what the fuck I was reading about, but that even at like a really young age, right? Like 6, 7, 8. I mean, that's what I did. Like I got up way before my mom, and I was actually just telling somebody about the stories of like watching those infomercials, because I was up at like 5 most of the time, which is, I'm assuming why my children are now up between 5 and 6. Thank you, Mom. Every single morning. But like I had several hours to myself in the morning before she woke up, and I knew not to wake her up. And so I would watch like all those food infomercials, right? And I was just like, I will never forget being like enthralled by these things and like taking notes on like all of the shit that I needed to tell my mom about when she woke up. Like, do y'all remember those things that like you could make chips in the microwave? It looked like the bottom of a bundt pan, and it had like hella slits in it. And supposedly, allegedly, you were supposed to be able to like cut tortillas into triangles, or like to cut. I can't even with this. I'm just like, who bought this shit thinking that it was going to work? I can tell you who did. It was my mom, because that was like one thing that I wanted more than anything. Like kids want all sorts of like toys and shit, and I was like, Mom, we got to get this chip maker for the microwave. And she did, and it was just like a piece of garbage. Oh my God. Oh, it is my capacity to laugh at my own jokes for me. But seriously, like what is making me laugh is like, I remember bringing that home to our apartment and like using it. And I just remember being like so geeked about it. I mean, like I was so excited. I was like, this is it. Like we're going to make chips. And the first thing that we tried were tortilla chips. We both were just like, that is not the move. Like, because you can't just microwave a tortilla and have chips. And then we did try potato chips too, and that was like a hard same. But I remember those. I also remember like those weird, they were like bags. And I can't. Okay, so there are like these weird bags that you can just like put like anything in, right? And they're like, yep, you're gonna make a whole rotisserie chicken inside of this bag. And it looked like, I don't know, I mean, it just looked like a weird, like a popcorn bag that was like insulated, and you can just put anything in here and it's going to be like it came out of the oven. And needless to say, those were like hella expensive, and my mom was like, I have already fallen for your like infomercial bullshit. I'm not buying those bags, but I would specifically get out of bed in the morning to watch that one infomercial because I was always just like captivated by like, whoa, he really did. I mean, like he roasted a whole ass chicken and like made a steak inside of this bag. So anyways, you can see where I'm going with this, right? Like from an early age, I was just like stoked on food and like preparing it. And I was always like that weird precocious kid, like in a restaurant, that was ordering like shrimp scampi in like some middle of nowhere restaurant in Minnesota. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh my God, watch, like all these other kids are going to order like, chicken tenders and shit, and I'm gonna order like the clam linguine, and like that was like who I was. And so again, no, like I think I fell in love with like cooking and food and wanting to learn about it and wanting to create it because I inherently knew that my mother wasn't good at it, but also sometimes it was out of like absolute necessity, right? Like, y'all remember getting those lists? And any of you were like latchkey kids, and like, not even if you weren't, like I always came home to a list of shit that needed to get done, or like I woke up to like a note from my mom, and I always loved those notes, but you know, the majority of the time it was like, don't forget to, and I know that I've talked about this on a previous episode of like, don't forget to pull out the chicken. And like somebody was going to die if you like actually forgot to pull out the chicken. You know what I mean? But as I got older, you know, I would just start getting more adventurous and I would take on tasks myself. Especially because there were times that like if I wanted to eat dinner that was not like a couple slices of cheese shoved into a tortilla and microwaved, like, I mean, I had to like learn, and bless her heart, because like we did not have like a bunch of cash or food to be like experimenting, but that didn't stop me from experimenting. But anyways, we also talked about like home ec, and she was older than me. And she was talking about, you know, like how much she loved home ec, and she still remembers home ec. And, you know, she had home ec, I want to say like all through middle school and high school. And like that absolutely was not a thing for me. I think I can like vaguely remember, taking like a semester of home ec in 8th grade, man, in like the middle of fuck nowhere in Valley City, North Dakota. And that was a riot. As I think that, like, if I remember correctly, we were still talking about like weird etiquette shit. I don't even know, but I definitely don't remember much from that class. And then in high school, I do. I mean, like, I wish that I could remember more of some of the things that we actually made. And again, it was not all throughout high school. I mean, I think I was like a sophomore and it was a semester of home ec. But I mean, I think that just kind of solidified like my love for creating food. You know what I'm saying? But like, I don't really, I don't remember learning some. I remember seriously learning the most from watching like the cooking channel, like the Food Network. And in middle school, I like trying to, did anybody else like write down recipes? Right. Like, I think everybody did. Right. Otherwise, like, how were you referenced? But I'll never forget that. And I would just have like this whole notebook of like shit that I wanted to make. And then like reading cookbooks. And then as I got older, and we've touched on this before, I actually just came over to my bookshelf to look at some of them, but I think that once I landed in like my love of writing and like really and reading in general and discovering like food memoir and that sort of thing, I mean, that only like grew my interest. And so to that I say, no, it was not necessarily my mama that taught me how to cook, but I wanted to learn how to cook so that I was not putting green bell pepper in jarred pasta sauce until the end of time and calling it dinner. Amen. My father worked in restaurants when I was younger. And I definitely give him credit. I think that he has a good palate, and I do, in terms of like technical skills, you know what I mean? Like I definitely picked up some stuff from him. Like I'll never forget, there was like a year where he was like heavy into Caesar salads, and like we would make our own dressing every time. And it was like my responsibility to like mince the sweet Jesus out of the garlic, right? And when we did garlic bread, it was the same. Like, you know, he taught me how to do that. And so I feel really fortunate. The woman that he was married to at the time has like one of the, like, in terms of like home cooks and whatnot, one of the best palates that I've ever, like natural palate, you know, nothing that was like trained or required any amount of schooling, but that woman could cook. And like in terms of seasoning things, and I still, you know, try to mimic some of the things that she did in the kitchen. And so I don't know. I love, obviously, because here we are, I love talking about that kind of stuff with other people, like, you know, where they picked stuff up, or like who taught them, you know what I mean? And I think like, yes, obviously there are like some of those relationships where it was like either our parents or our grandparents, but that is definitely not necessarily the case for me. And I think too, I thought that cooking and food, the older I got, was like sexy. You know what I'm saying? Like there was something about somebody that could like create something in that way, and just it's an artistry to me, right? And so that was another, is like I wanted to learn how to cook, not just for myself but for other people. And so yeah, I don't know, I mean, like I love having those kinds of conversations. And yeah, I learned that about her, you know. I think maybe she was 20 years older than me, but just how home ec and that sort of thing, like that was how she learned a lot. And I'm not, that didn't surprise me necessarily, just because of the way that where she was raised and like the way that schooling was sort of modeled then. But yeah, I was like, to be hella honest with you, I'm pretty sure I was like stoned during home ec and like fucking off and not really, again, I can't even think about like anything that I actually made. I should reach out to some folks from high school and be like, what did we make in that class? Like, what was happening? But yeah, I like sharing stories like that and thinking about, like just where we came from and what influenced us and the reasons that we were influenced to begin with. I actually get to, I'm going to go back. My father lives in upstate New York, around the Finger Lakes region. And I've never been there before. I've been to New York City once, and loved it so much. And, me and the babies, Scarlett's 5 and Maddox is 1. The 3 of us are going to go back for a week. And over the Thanksgiving holiday, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I don't teach my kids about Thanksgiving. I do, but the real Thanksgiving. And if you don't like that, you should educate yourself. But regardless, again, we talk about Thanksgiving a lot differently, but I am traveling that week to go back. And I was thinking about how, because I really haven't celebrated Thanksgiving in a number of years, and the older that Scarlett gets, you know, we create conversation around like what that actually means and what that actually looks like, and why some people are continuing to do things that they're doing things. But when I was still married, we used it as an opportunity to travel, basically. And so the quintessential sort of like Thanksgiving meals, that hasn't like been a thing for me in years and years. I mean, probably since Scarlett was born. And so I'm actually really looking forward to going back and spending time with my dad and like cooking with him. We got together right when Maddox was born. Maddox was just shy of 4 weeks old. Really the last time that we kind of got together in that way for, you know, like a couple of days. And so I am super looking forward to like being in the kitchen with him. And again, we haven't talked about, what we plan on making, but like I travel in search of good food and beverage, you know? And so actually, if you're listening to this and you have recommendations in the Finger Lakes region or even in Rochester, y'all should drop me a line. You can email me at yoursandbutter@gmail.com. You can always DM me. I'm on Instagram at Ava Truckee. But I would love to hear some recommendations. But yes, I also want to hear about as we get kind of closer to that season, what your take on Thanksgiving is, what you're doing in your homes to sort of like decolonize and create conversations amongst like your people about Thanksgiving. Like I said, I still, you know, we've used it as an opportunity to travel. The older that Scarlett gets, you know, I educate her and, you know, we read books but I, in the past, have like still used it as an opportunity because people have time off or whatever to kind of commune with my people. Right. And so I want to know what you're making so that we can do sort of like a big, like holiday / Thanksgiving, feast, right? Like that's kind of how I look at it. Like, you know, what are y'all making at the end of November when y'all are getting together with your families? And is it like the very Americanized sort of green bean casserole, turkey, that sort of thing? Or like, I think way before Scarlett was even born, I mean, like one of the holidays that I spent with my dad, I think he made like drunken noodles or something, you know what I mean? Like, and I loved it. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I love not really sticking to, I don't really love it, y'all. Should I have added that to my unpopular food opinions? Do y'all want to drag me for that? It's not my favorite. It's really not. Like, I would say, it is casserole-y things and whatnot. Like, I love mashed potatoes. I actually have like a very large soft spot for stuffing. What's the other word that people call it? Dressing. I don't like that word. Dressing just like equates salad dressing in my brain. I understand why people call it dressing. That's not what I call it. I call it stuffing, even if it's not being stuffed inside anything. And I do love that. But like turkey, meh. I love a smoked turkey moment. Turkey is not my jam anyways, like in terms of like deli meat. I'd rather, like, honest to God, everybody needs to just be making Samin Nosrat's buttermilk brine roast chicken for Thanksgiving. Like, do a couple of those bad boys. That's my take. I really feel like that's what people should be eating. Turkey is just meh. I'm sorry. Forgive me. And also, like, What I do love about the holiday is I like am a pie stan through and through, like pie over cake forever. And so like the pie scene is always really good. But other than that, like casserole-y things, I like green bean casserole too, actually. In terms of casseroles, like I will fuck with a green bean casserole. And I actually even really like a... I know some of y'all are really not going to love me for this, but like if you make your own cream of mushroom soup, but still use the canned green beans, that is also really good. But other than that, I mean, it's not like I hate, you know, like I'm trying to like, what are like the broccoli and rice, what is like cheesy situation? I take it or leave it. It's I don't know. I actually, number one, I haven't eaten yet today. And number two, this is like inspiring me to start thinking about like, cause I want to do some project cooking, right? For sure. Like I don't want to dedicate my time and energy to basting a fucking turkey for however long, but I do want to make sure that I have like some adequate time to, I don't know, it would be good, like to do dumplings or something. You know what I'm saying? Like something that's a little bit more interactive. Anyways, if you get together for that holiday, I want to hear about what y'all are making, what y'all are doing, and I'd love to pull some stories together for an episode as we get closer to kind of like the holiday season. And again, if y'all have any recommendations, Finger Lakes region, Rochester, upstate situation, I think I'm going to be in Ithaca at some point. I want to know where I should be eating, where I should be drinking, and where I should take these babies to. I'll catch up with y'all next week. Bye.